We've seen this trend over the past 10 or 15 years. There's been an ever-increasing amount of prescription drug diversion and related issues and crimes that we've seen in our county. When I first became a deputy, the prescription drug epidemic seemed to really be taking hold around that time in the late 90s. And it's just been a continual problem and a growing problem ever since.
One of the largest expenses to our government right now is either in prescribing the medications or in treating the folks after they've gotten into problems, either addiction, abuse, or even suicides and accidental deaths. Our county is one of the highest for accidental deaths from prescription narcotic overdose.
When someone receives a prescription, they've received that prescription due to the fact that they've gone and seen a doctor, and that doctor, a medical professional who's trained in medicine, has established a diagnosis for any number of different conditions, and then based on their knowledge and experience, they've prescribed a medication to help a person deal with that situation. And so when people take medication that's not prescribed to them, obviously they haven't been to the doctor, and these drugs, especially if taken in a manner that's not consistent with a doctor's prescription, can be very dangerous.
When you get into methadone and prescription opioids, they can be extremely unpredictable and extremely unreliable in terms of tolerance, where folks may have a huge tolerance to certain medicines. They switch, or they get something given to them by a friend or a neighbor or somebody who means well, but instead of taking a little bit of it to see if it works, they take a huge dose of it. They wind up overdose because they thought they could tolerate more.
When somebody takes a prescription medication that's not prescribed to them, obviously they don't have that type of condition. They're not under the doctor's continual care. And of course, then they're taking these medications recreationally, they're using them to get high, and they're not using these drugs for the purpose for which they were intended. And that makes for a very deadly, potentially deadly combination.
If you're being prescribed a controlled substance, you have a certain responsibility to yourself and to your family to make sure that it's kept in a secure and safe manner.
There are drug seekers that go out in the community and break in automobiles and break into homes if they know or believe that someone has a particular type of prescription medication prescribed to them. And so just leaving these drugs out laying around in our houses nowadays is not a good idea anymore. Unfortunately, we do see a lot of this in our community, and oftentimes it's from a family member. I know a lot of times people will think, well, my child wouldn't do that, or one of my family members wouldn't steal from me, or that type of thing, or one of my children's friend wouldn't steal from me. But if we put our heads in the sand, then don't be surprised if you wake up one day and realize that somebody you didn't think would do something actually did do something. It happens all the time.
I have patients that the neighbors find out they got hurt and have been prescribed narcotics, and all of a sudden they're getting the windows beat out of their house. Where people are knocking windows out and grabbing the bottles where they set them in the window. Other folks just break in the house altogether. So if you didn't have enough problem from your back strain that you got, now you've got a door that's been busted or a window that's been broken out that you've got to repair. So it's kind of insult to injury at that point. But making sure that you keep your medical information to yourself, that you don't broadcast the idea that those medications are kept in your house, making sure that you use them safely for the problem they're prescribed in. Get a locking cabinet. Make sure that you or your spouse or someone that you can trust has the only key to it. If it's something that's being prescribed temporarily and you don't use it all, take it down to the sheriff's office. They'll be glad to take the mess off your hands. Those kind of actions will keep your family and yourself and the other folks around you safe and prevent your medications from being diverted into uses that you didn't want them diverted to.
With teen prescription drug abuse being on the rise, it obviously affects my age group. People typically don't realize how big of a problem it is, and especially teens, because we don't, collectively as a whole, I don't feel like that my generation realizes how their choices today will really affect them in the future.
There's also a false sense of security, especially among young people, that taking a prescription drug recreationally for a non-medical purpose is safe. It's not safe. It's the opposite. It's extremely dangerous.
Prescription drug abuse now is more likely to be the gateway drug for our teenagers. Primarily things like nerve pills and hydrocodone. A lot of times where it's either been prescribed by a parent or for a parent.
I think for most of us that are involved in substance abuse prevention, it typically stems from having a family member that struggled with abuse. And in my family, I did have that. My aunt was married to a man that abused prescription drugs and all sorts of drugs. And then also, I think that there's nothing better than being passionate about something that affects you daily. And obviously with teen prescription drug abuse being on the rise, it obviously affects my age group.
They're becoming secretive, they're not acting right, they're short-tempered. All those kind of things are telltale signs when you see that change, that something's going on. You may not know why, but something's going on. But I think that's the key for parents and for families and for loved ones, is something different. And have we addressed it, and are we taking care of it properly? Becomes the bigger issue for them.
The big thing in prevention is catching it upstream. And so we would prefer to catch it before the problem starts by educating than to catch it downstream and have to go through the recovery process, which is really expensive.
Realizing that we couldn't enforce our way out of this problem, we also had to think outside the box a little bit too. And back in 2008, we started a program which we called Pills Can Kill. And that was basically our prescription drug take-back program. And what we did was we partnered with other law enforcement agencies in the county, and we stationed our officers out in the community at 5 different locations. We asked the citizens that if they had medicine in their homes that they no longer needed or that was outdated, instead of just leaving it in their medicine cabinet to sit there for months and years, which would then become available to other people for which these medicines were not prescribed, and not just to simply flush them down the toilet. We asked the citizens of the county if they would bring those medicines to us and let us collect that medicine and document it and then dispose of it accordingly. The program remains a tremendous success here in our county, because every time we have one of our prescription drug take-back days, we're collecting anywhere from 50 to 100,000 dosage units of prescription medication every time we do it. We expanded beyond that, and instead of just doing this program 2 times a year, we actually, through a grant, we were able to receive funding to purchase a prescription drug drop box, which we've placed in our lobby here at the Sheriff's Office, and that box is available to the citizens during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Kind of to piggyback on the Pills Can Kill program that we put together, we also developed an initiative that we refer to as M.E.D.S, which stands for Monitor, Educate, Dispose, and Secure. And the main purpose of this program or this initiative is to focus on prescription medications that are classified as controlled substances, which basically are our painkillers, ADD medications, anxiety medications, psychotropic drugs, and the like. We continue to work with our substance abuse coalitions, the Carteret County Substance Abuse Task Force here locally, and a larger regional substance abuse task force which we deal with. We reached out to the medical community and brought about information to them so that they could see what we were dealing with regard to prescription drug diversion and misuse on the law enforcement side.
We've worked cooperatively with this program, and I think that's the important thing, and you know, through the forums, through the other things that we've been doing, the idea that we're stressing that we want to get folks help for the problem. That we're not as interested necessarily in punishment as we are in help. I think has been a key part of this program.
I've always been the first one to say, and everybody pretty much agrees, that we can't enforce our way out of this problem. This is not a one-sided issue. Dealing with prescription drug diversion is going to take action and participation amongst several different groups and participation by a lot of different people.
It's a community effort. You know, it takes a lot of folks with a lot of things. You know, the counselors at School Forum I thought was great. You know, I wish we'd had more folks there. I wish we'd had more of the school counselors there to talk about it and get their input. And I had 2 or 3 folks come up to me after the forum who were either teachers or counselors or other personnel at school that said their family had had this problem and told me about the things they'd been through, and they wish they'd heard all this before. So I think the awareness effort is probably what ultimately is going to have the biggest impact, and being able to let folks know what we can do to correct the problem.
We've held a number of trainings, we've held some seminars, and we've had meetings and presentations with our medical folks, had a lot of one-on-one conversations, we've had a lot of group conversations with regard to the prescription drug problem that we face in our county. And I can say that I believe that we have had a lot of positive results from this interaction with the medical community and our pharmacists, and we're well on the way to addressing the problem in our county. We've received a lot of positive feedback from the medical community and a lot of support. I think that the situation has gotten to the point now where people realize that there is a problem and that there are some things that we can do to try to address the problem and to try to reduce the amount of prescription drug diversion that is going on out in our communities.